just trying to work it through.
Hold on a minute. I need a moment here. I'm just going to log in again. I apologize. One second. No, if you can log in for the waiting room, that'd be great.
Is the boardroom sharing a screen right now?
Yes. Okay, my computer is muted.
Dan, we can't see anything you're sharing.
All right, how are we for quorum, by the way?
We're good for quorum?
All right, let me know when the screen sharing is taken care of, and then we will be ready to start. Yeah. I understand that we still don't see your slides. Why is it pretty slow?
This is me. That's the screen I need to share. So make sure it's on here. Make sure it's open. Make sure you have a window. It's not there.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can we proceed without the slides from here? All right, why don't we get started on some preliminary matters while Leanne gets the slides under control. Is that okay, Leanne?
Sounds good. I've never had this happen before, but.
All right. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is David Kopowski. I'm chair of the Toronto District School Board Special Education Advisory Committee. I'm also the representative on SEAC for the Ontario Parents of Visually Impaired Children. I'm calling to order, or disorder as the case may be, the June meeting of SEAC. Welcoming everybody, whether you're new to SEAC or you've been here before. What I'd like to do, as I always do, is go around the room and have everyone who's in the room introduce themselves represent? Starting on my right.
Jordan Ross, I'm the vice chair of SEAC, and I'm also the Board Section 2 board.
My name is Laura Green, and I represent the Fusion National Ontario. Good evening, everyone. Nancy Palmer, Executive Superintendent for Special Education Programs and Equitable Outcomes. And I'm going to pass it over to our newly appointed CEO, who will introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kilo Serrano. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of TSD. Thursday.
Yes.
Amy Stacy CFO and COO.
And Leo here for Autism Ontario.
Right, that's everyone in the room. Who's on call? Just in time to introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I'm Jean-Paul Kahn, and community rep.
Great, thank you. Welcome back. And welcome to everybody who's online. We will proceed to the initial steps of our meeting. First, land acknowledgement. All rise for able, and Vice Chair Jordan Glass will lead us in.
We acknowledge the lands of Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people.
Be seated. And a particular welcome to our new CEO. And looking forward to your being here and doing whatever we can do to help you land smoothly, safely, and truthfully in your new role. Let's go through our opening procedures. First, we have an agenda proposed for tonight. Can I ask if we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah.
Leo moves it, and Laura seconded it. All in favor?
Over here,
Yes, that's approved.
All right, thank you. And does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare in relation to anything on the agenda? Please see no. We have no conflicts. Great. Approving the minutes, I'm going to propose doing this in reverse order. First, May meeting minutes. May I ask if there could be a motion to approve the May meeting minutes? Jordan's moving it, seconder. Yeah. Any revisions anyone wants to ask for, or should we proceed to a vote? Nothing? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes of our May meeting?
five here again. Sorry, four. David, I don't see the five. Five, Leanne.
Those are approved.
All right, the March meeting minutes. I'd like first the motion to approve them, and then I'm going to propose the amendments to them that are set up in my chair's report, which I don't think we have to read out. They're all spelled out. But first, we need a motion to get minutes on the table. Okay, George's moving it. Laura's seconding it. I'm moving the addition of my amendments to the minutes as set up in my chair's report, or entertaining a motion. Can someone move that for me, please? Leo, second. Okay, very good. Jordan seconded. We just have a vote on Where are we, Dan?
5 here.
I have 7 online, so that would pass.
Right, and that means we can dispense with my motion regarding the minutes. The next item on the agenda is my chair's report. I am going to move my fast. I am going to move at the end of the committee received my chair's report because I can't cover all of it and I get all the other report items we have to deal with. First, welcome to our new CEO. We are a lively bunch, and I look forward personally to meeting with you and getting to know you and working collaboratively. And we got a good bunch of people here. They don't agree on everything, but they have a very healthy and vigorous debate on things. They agree on lots of things, and really disagree on items of principle and support from all sides of those debates. I want to just focus on a couple of major high points. First, this committee has held a town hall a year and a half ago for parents of kids with special education needs, and a public forum last April. Both were tremendous successes. The community has learned from our example, and I'm proud to tell you that the Ontario Autism Coalition and the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act Alliance, which I have the privilege of chairing, will be hosting a virtual town hall for parents of students with disabilities and special education needs for across Ontario on the 18th of June. The Minister of Education has publicly stated that he wants to take a look at how to deal with the inconsistencies in the delivery of special education around the province. We felt that we could assist by inviting him to come to this virtual town hall. We're going to hear directly from parents, and we're going to be using the exact approach that this committee used. I'm not going to edit from speaks, as long as they're a parent, and as long as they're prepared to follow the principles that we've set out. Tell us about your barriers, tell us what can be done to fix it. Don't name the school, don't name the child, don't name the teacher. We will ask if they're open to naming the school board, but that's up to them. Please sign up. Please encourage others to. If you have any social media networks or association, please share this because we want to get as wide a representation as we can. Let me mention briefly that I bought a Freedom of Information application several months ago because then interim Director of Education, Stacey Zucker, here with us, always great to have you here, and made an announcement in January about a change, a detailed announcement about a change to our the special education review that had been underway for a year and a half, about which the staff described themselves as being very excited. And I had asked for a copy of the statement read out. It was not provided. I brought Freedom of Information application asking for it and more things. It was refused. I brought another one just asking for the text that was read out. It was refused on the grounds were set up in my report, but essentially it would reveal things that are public, except every word that I'm seeking was read out in public. Rather than appeal to the Information Privacy Commissioner, which is a proud work, I've done it, I think I'd be successful. I simply have, with the assistance of a member of this committee and AI, you'll see in my report a word for word transcription of what was said at that meeting. It's exactly what I was trying to get. So unfortunately, we have to go through those steps. Now, with that, there are other items in my chair's report. I'd like them reflected in the minutes. I don't have time. I don't want to take more time to go through them. Can I entertain a motion that my report be received in attendance to the minutes? Maura, seconder? Leo? All in favor? Yeah.
I have 7 online, so that's 12, so that
All right, thank you. on several other ones, which will total about 45,000 people subscribing. So it's quite public. I would hope it can be reflected in the minutes. Let's move to the budget topic. We will have a motion at the end of this that a SEAC member wanted to bring, which is set up in my report. But first, I think we should deal with the budget process as is. In fact, we made up two motions. This is in fulfillment of the board's legal obligation to consult the Special Education Advisory Committee on the special education budget. The board can only give us general information up to now, but it thought I wanted to spend, but up until the time after our May meeting, the board learned for the first time from the province what money they can expect from the province. So we will be having a presentation on it now. I want to begin by noting that in my chair's report and at earlier meetings, I've asked for us to get some kind of written information that we're able to digest well before the meeting. That was not received. And I am very concerned that if there is going to be effective consultation on budget, especially under the timelines available now, without the opportunity to read the details in advance, is not effective consultation. But let's do the best we can with our time. I'll punt it over to TDSB staff and figure out who goes in what order, and we're all leaders.
So thank you very much. As mentioned, my name is Stephanie Harrison. I'm the interim executive officer of finance, and I'm here to present an update on the 26-27 budget. We do have some slides, but I can't see in the room. So
Leanne, can you share the budget slides, please?
And as in the past, because I'm blind, I have not got these in advance to read in order to put this on the screen. It's available to my colleagues. Right up to me. It seems to have leveled the playing field. Not available. I wonder if staff would like me to proceed to the next agenda item while we work on the slides, or
I'm going to try to share screen. Yeah, I'll try.
Sure, I am trying.
So apologies, everyone. The board, we were supposed to be in committee room A today because they just upgraded the IT system in the boardroom. So we're having a bit of technical troubles, but I am sharing screen right now. Thanks.
thanks, Mandy. So we can just move to slide 2. So the 26-27 budget, there is a requirement under the Education Act for the board to submit a balanced budget. And that balanced budget means that our estimated expenses exceed or are equal to our estimated revenues are equal to or more than our estimated expenses. This year, because the TSB is under supervision, budget decisions will be approved by the supervisor, and then the budget will be submitted to the ministry, and we have to submit our 26-27 budget by the convention. So as mentioned in the presentation at the last meeting, there are 3 key high-level steps to the budget process. The first step revolves around planning, so the board assesses what our staffing, our educational needs, facility needs engaged the budget online budget survey, and the purpose of that engagement is to provide feedback on the budget. And the third step in the budget process is to balance the budget, so to bring expenses in line with estimated revenues by reducing any shortfalls. As mentioned, we engaged the public this year in the budget survey. The survey was issued between March 2nd and 16th, and we had over 5,000 respondents who responded to the survey. Survey respondents were asked to rank a list of 10 what they thought their top 5 budget priorities should be. And the priorities that were selected the most based on those responses, and these are in alphabetical order, are first one is classroom resources and materials. Second, literacy and numeracy development. Third, mental health and well-being. Fourth, school facilities and maintenance. And lastly, special education support and resources. The majority of the funding that the board receives annually comes from the Ministry of Education, and the ministry funding supports all areas of board activities. So that includes staffing, learning resources, special education, transportation, facilities, and administration. Our funding levels are largely dependent on enrollment, and enrollment is expected in 26-27 to decline by over 5,000 students at the TVs. The next slide is a slide depicting the projected core education funding across the province. In 26-27, the provincial funding for core education is about $30.5 billion. And the special education fund makes up roughly 12% of that total across the province at approximately $3.8 billion. The special education funding comes to the board primarily through 4 applications, and I'll just cut a very high-level talk on how each of those applications are calculated. So the first allocation. The first allocation is a per pupil allocation. This is the largest allocation of funding to the board. It's about 53% of total funding that we receive. And this funding is calculated on a per pupil basis based on our average daily enrollment. And there's an amount funded depending on the grade level of the students. So from JK to grade 3, the funding amount is roughly $1,217, and then it declines down to $616 per grade 9 to 12 students. This funding is intended to cover all costs associated with special education supports within the board, including teachers, learning materials, and professional development. The next allocation is the differentiated needs allocation, and this allocation accounts for 34% of the total special education funding the board receives. The purpose of this funding allocation is to address variation among school boards with respect to student special education needs and the school board's ability to meet those needs. And it appreciates that those needs vary due to geographic factors, language factors, and social demographics. The differentiated needs allocation relies on a statistical formula, and the statistical formula attempts to estimate the total number of students who are required special education supports and programming, and it takes into account information from the census data as well as the Ministry of Education's data. And it looks at predictors of special education needing, including education level, median household income, recent immigration, etc. There's also a board-specific formula which uses 7 criteria to determine what the board-specific portfolio of special education needs is, and this allocation takes into account things such as the number of students within the board receiving special education supports, QAO participation, and the number of credits that are accumulated by special education students. There's also a number of other components within this application that look to support the board in funding collaborative approaches to special education students, to supporting multidisciplinary needs, math interventions, professional assessments, and also there's funding provided to support transitions to students as they move between grades, schools, and as they move. The next application is the complex sports application, which is approximately 10% of the total special education funding, and this envelope is to support very specialized supports for students with extraordinarily high needs. So within the complex sports allocation, there's three high-level factors that help calculate how much funding TDS receives. The first is the special instance portion, and this portion is specifically meant to provide funding for students who have high needs, and high needs are defined as those students who require more than 2 full-time staff members. The second is an education and community partnerships program application, and this funding is meant to support those students who can't attend regular school for a variety of reasons, including court-ordered facility stays and those who might be very specialized. And the final component is a behavioral expertise component, and this is funding for the board to hire applied behavior professionals both to train staff and to support students directly with autism and other behavioral exceptionalities. And finally, the last portion is the specialized equipment application, representing about 3% of the total funding of the board. This funding is meant to assist the board to purchase specialized equipment, which directly supports special education needs within the board. And each board receives a base application of $200,000, and then an additional $51.10 per AEP. And this funding is meant to purchase equipment that will support such things as sensory and physical assistance, hearing and vision aids, and technology, software, and hardware. So using the information that we have provided as part of the core education announcement, TPSB expects to receive $396.5 million in special education funding in 26-27. And this is about a $6.4 million decrease from the amount we received in 25-26, primarily due to the decrease in population. The school-based staffing for 26-27 has already been finalized, and the staffing incorporates the fact that we will need less teachers next year due to the lower enrollment that we're projecting for 1,000 students. Despite the fact that overall enrollment within the board is not next year, special education school-based staffing will remain unchanged across the district. So the next steps as we finalize the budget, we are still working on the 26-27 budget. However, all of the staffing positions have already been finalized. When our work is concluded, the TPSB will submit our final budget to the ministry by June 30th. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present this high-level update, and we are happy to receive any feedback or questions.
Thank you. Jordan will take a speakers list and while he's doing so, I'll lead off if I can. Can you tell me of you said that there is a projected 5,000, a reduction of a total of 5,000 students that will be at TDSB next year. As of last meeting, as I recall, we were told that the percentage was expected to be lower than pro rata. Do you know whether the number of students with disabilities or special education needs this fall is going to go up or going to go down? And if it goes down, by how many, or if it goes up, by how many?
Thanks, David. I'll take that one. And at this time, we do not have numbers in terms of decrease or increase, particularly for students with disabilities or special education needs. We will know more when the school starts. We get new registrations over the summer. We get families moving over the summer, well into the fall. So we don't have those numbers right now.
And similarly, do you know whether the profile of the student population of students with disabilities is going to be more students with higher needs or lower needs? I take it if you don't know how many, you probably don't know the profile either until the fall.
Correct.
Right, so then how is it that we could be told that the staffing will remain the same when in effect that may mean there will be, if there was, for example, a reduction or if there's an increase in the number of students with disabilities or special education needs, or if a reduction of lower rate, then cutting staff pro rata for all students would be actually a bigger cut for students with disabilities or special education needs. Can you help me out?
So I will start and ask my colleagues to do something. So through the chair, we do know that our enrollment is going down by 5,000, although we do not expect the number of students that have special education needs to decrease by 5,000. We expect it to be lower. We still do expect it to decrease, just based on the fact that we will have a decrease in enrollment. And so based on that, as we keep the staffing exactly the same as it currently is or was in October, then we would expect there to be actually proportionately an increase in the level of support for students with special education needs. And so, like we do every year, we will use, because our funding is, even for special education, is mostly based on our overall enrollment, it obviously impacts how much funding we have available in order for us to meet the needs of students with special education needs. Even though we know that our funding is only down by 6.4 million, we did not decrease our expenditure. In fact, it will be higher just based on increases in salary levels. So that our commitment to special education to students with special education needs is that even though our enrollment is decreasing and it is expected that our number of students that have special education needs will decrease, we have kept the staffing level the same. So I would say that is in comparison to every other staffing level that we have seen, including centrally, we have maintained the school level support for students with special education needs based on the fact that we know how important those supports are, and it was again indicated as priority through the survey.
The other short thing we'll put up our list, obviously to reach a balanced budget, we're going to have to cut something. What areas are planned for cuts? Even though they're not in the special education envelope, beyond that 6 million, they can affect our students. Can you tell us what areas are going to be cut?
So we are, through the chair, still working through the budget, and it is still to be determined whether or not we will reach a completely balanced budget for 26-27. That being said, we do know that school-based staffing, like classroom teachers, for example, decreases with the decrease in enrollment. So that will, the decrease in school-based staffing based on enrollment will have impacted our overall budget. In addition, as I'm sure that many people have seen through media, we did decrease by 309 central staff, and so that will be able to help us offset some of the decrease in grants as a result of decreased enrollment. And we are still looking at other areas because again, we haven't finalized our budget yet, that we would look in order to move towards a balanced budget.
ask someone to do a prioritization exercise, you're implying that the categories are discretion optional. So it's completely irrelevant whether or not the special education was selected by respondents as a priority. I'm happy that it was, but it's irrelevant. Special education is not optional, it's not discretionary, it's a legal right protected under the Education Act, Terrorism and Right Code, consolidated by the Supreme Court of Canada and Court of British Columbia. They ruled that it's not a dispensable luxury, but a means by which to enable students access education. So you don't put fire safety in the survey. So why do you put this? It's exactly the same thing. When you list it in the survey, it seems to be an attempt to get stakeholders more open to the legal idea of considering special education as something to revoke. It is not. Please kindly stop including it in these surveys. It's already the third time this happens. And the second topic, thank you for presenting the special education funding envelopes. Again, quick reminder as always, special education envelope does not define the board's legal obligation. It exists, obligation exists, regardless of whether provincial funding is sufficient. If the envelope falls short, the legal duty to accommodate students does not disappear. Thank you.
Right. Nora, and then Paul, and then Richard.
Thank you. So Leo commented on something I was going to comment about. Last year we received an apology for the survey and planning students with disabilities on the survey and letting publish weigh in whether or not they're important enough. And this year, unfortunately, that apology never came. So I appreciate Leo brought that forward. I won't touch on it again. I want to thank also the staff probably did go through extensive data to show evidence to try and maintain facts. That must have been meticulous looking at IQC students, unidentified students, and making sure that despite inequality, there were going to be needs in the system. So I want to thank staff for fighting to put that together. So sure we have many evidence to make the case that we need this staff levels. We do warn that losing central staff can impact students. I think sometimes people aren't aware that those are experts that are deployed in situations where schools are struggling and capacity building. So I hesitate to say it's total win. I appreciate you have to find the money somewhere. But sometimes those things do affect how students experience school, so I agree with that. And then lastly, I guess I'm very disappointed about the lack of transparency of that project. So we, and I've been here quite some time, as you're aware, and we've had financial facts my entire time. And so it's appreciated that somehow you're telling us how we get the money, which I appreciate that was a really great explanation. But it's information we get on because it's public. I don't know anything about your expenditures really. I don't know how much money is going to ISPs. I don't know how much money is going to EAs. I don't know how much money is going to special education teachers, busing, transportation. At one time, this entire committee would have a document showing that. So it's very difficult for us to say that this is consultation when we have nothing to consult about other than this is a pot of money that it's not enough and we have to make sure we get credit. And so I am on eternally grateful that we did that. But on the other hand, this is truly a partnership and because we don't have that to even help inform you. So I wanted to make that comment because we would have seen that before we were asked to say anything about budget. But for me and my historic time here, this is not consultation.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I think Laura gave one that I wanted, but I have a question, not just a question. And you indicated that the special education school grade staff would be status quo. I think that is one question that I would have two questions. So does it mean that the status quo during this year was no problem with that level of staffing? That's the first question. Again, I'm told it's special education person. And the second question is, if central-based physical education staff for this. Because if there's a third there, you probably have some effects, impacting, even the provision of special education. Want to know if there is a potential cut at the central, how would you be making sure that this has not negative impact on the special education in the schools?
Thank you very much. Good evening, John Paul. Thank you for the question.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Carry on, sir.
The last question is the one that I've been asking, correct, position for many years, and also academy staff. We always put Lord at the beginning, at the foundation of project. And you said that here that the board is required to balance the budget. At the same time, I'm asking myself, what is the purpose of education? Built into that foundation of the world. We all know that in science, private education, the same education has, stem of what the purpose of education, which is to provide students with the opportunity to realize full potential. How would, if we focus only on the government, we'll make sure that as we do that, make sure that we're getting all these, special education, special education students to reach the full potential as well. Because if we keep looking at, because we may go back, if we find that focusing only on the government, we kind of normalize, the idea of or the purpose of education. Have to go back, as we have this discussion many years ago, 10 years, 15 years ago, with all this, so-called consultation, which is not a consultation, just is an information. You can't, share what's on the last, nobody was saying last. It's not really, we're not only co-creating this module, especially just on the past. And this is not the first time, it's becoming kind of a way. That's what thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair Oposky, and good evening, John Paul, good evening, all members of SEAC. It's lovely to see you on screen, or even if you can't, we know that you're there participating, and I appreciate you so much. So John Paul, to answer to your questions, absolutely, our primary focus is on the success of our students with special education needs, disabilities, all of our students. And I really want to echo Leo's caution and absolutely accurate language to say we have a duty to be supporting students who need accommodations. The special education grant is meant to be an incremental grant, so it's not the expectation of the ministry or indeed we have the board to stay within that envelope because our students with special education needs and disabilities have access to the other grants as well. So I want to reassure you about that and our commitment to our students. And which kind of connects to your first question, John Paul, how do we ensure support throughout the course of the year? I can share with you that Andy meets weekly and honestly daily with consultants and coordinators when we have a student with need to review the supports out of school, and if there is adjustment throughout the system that is necessary, if additional support is required. If a team is required to go in and assess the programmatic needs of the student, we send that specialized team in to work with the local school team to be making sure programming is at its utmost, and if additional support is required, we dispatch that. So that commitment maintains throughout the year. And in regards to your second question, I hope I'm getting it all. You were asking about central reduction. So it is an unfortunate place that we are in, sir, that we are not only 5,000 students projected down next year, we're 3,000 students this year. So that's, within these 2 years, that's a very significant drop in enrollment. And which creates a deficit situation for us, and we have to be looking at what I'll say, adjusting the size of our central teams in all departments to be making sure that we are, what I'll use the phrase, right sizing to our new enrollment size. So difficult decisions in all departments, and special education was included in that consideration. We did reduce some central staff. But what I will assure SEAC is that the central staff do not directly support students. I don't want to minimize every person on the team is important, nor is the point. Of course, even employees who don't directly support students, their work is valued and important. The frame that we tried to take was about modernization, and where we had positions where there was more than one individual in the role, would we be able to again right size based on our enrollment. So that's how the decisions were made, and again, that's department by department. So it's we were included in the TDSB team, but what I can always reassure you is that under Mandy's leadership and as well, that we are committed to supporting all of our students, to be taking our infrastructure and making excellent processes and procedures. And we are very, very thankful that the staffing has been maintained because we know that there are students with need who need our SNAs, EAs, and educators. So I think
Could you just tell us how many central staff in the special education department are being eliminated? A specific number.
Yeah, thanks for the question, David. The details about the department by department reductions have not been made public, so I am committed to maintaining our communication standard for the board.
As soon as it's public, will you let us know, even if it's over the summer?
If it's made public for department by department, David, I would be honoring that communication standard to you.
So we may never know how many were replaced.
I'm going to go back to our school-based staffing has been maintained. Yeah, and I know that what you're
I'm
asking.
asking a specific question. It's possible, not about school-based staff, but it's possible we may never know how many people got modernized or right-sized in different jobs.
So David, what I'll say is that you know that we publish a special education plan annually, right? So the details about our staffing is included in the special education plan. So that is.
So we'll know by the end of July when you submit it to the province.
And it's published on our website.
Right, okay, thanks. We're actually a bit jammed on time, but I wanted Richard, Jessica, and Jordan, can you each add in about, can you each do like 1 minute each? Can you manage that? If possible. I'm not gonna hold you to it, but just give it a try.
Thank you. I think, what I would really like is not to provide us, with this type of chilling answers, and really to bring some quantitative, data to support what, Luis just described to us. And the other comment that I want also to make is, I'm not sure I really understand, when it comes to share something about the future of special education with us. And we always, the staff always says, wait when you become public. I don't understand. Are we public? Maybe, I think that is if because this meeting is public, maybe what I would expect is to, during this meeting, the meeting that happened between you, David, and staff, that you know at least what's going on. So, and to be engaged and give any advice before things become public. That is, I think, the expectation, not always saying that one is wrong. And saying that, that is becoming our own made that point. I think we keep saying really important. I would expect that this, staff, this central staff reduction, that maybe if it's not possible to do it because the meeting is open, that we gave it, that during the meeting after this whole meeting, we have a conversation around that and to see what is possible in addition of the reduction of the central level on what will happen in the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. Whereas the budget survey asked respondents to establish a priority ranking for the noted categories, how does this translate to the budget allocation, i.e., what is the dollar value cost of each priority item, and how do we ensure that the funding allocation maximizes the spend and benefits of this? To me, you can rank 10 things, but it's like going in a restaurant, somebody asks you what you want. You have a set amount of dollars you want to spend in that restaurant. Each item has a different price. I don't see any valuation, monetization to each of these rankings. So is it possible that if 5 of the 10 that were selected would maximize the entire budget spend, whereas you could pick others and leave one out and spend, have money left over? I don't understand how ranking it translates to the budget. So if finance team can explain the value of each of the 10 items, how they impact the budget, I think that would be very informative for SEAC and help us better understand. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. By the way, Leanne, can you get a motion ready that I sent you on the budget to be posted on the screen? And if for some reason you can't, you send it to me, you can put it up on the screen. Jessica.
Thank you. Good evening. The information that we brought tonight isn't very helpful when it comes to trying to evaluate the effects on special education students. When we don't have access to information from the board, we need to look at information from other sources, which does seem to be available. And I'm concerned by what I'm hearing, but unfortunately, when the board doesn't release information, we're really having to go off rumor speculation, etc. However, I'm going to bring up one of the points to illustrate the concerns. So we are hearing the school-based staffing will remain as it was this year. That's great. But that requires students need to be able to get to school. So one of the things that we're hearing is being cut, for example, is supervision of special education students on transportation to get to school. Students with significant disabilities may not be able to travel safely to school on TSD transportation without supervision, which means that sports available in the school aren't very relevant if they can't get there in the first place. It's really difficult to have a conversation. I don't know if that's true, or is that just a rumor? But I would be very concerned if we're saying that, well, it's fine because it's not school-based staffing, so we can cut it, because that does very much affect the student experience.
Great. Thank you.
Really quick, because I can echo some of the things that my colleagues have said. The big concern for me is the lack of thoroughness of what we've seen here in the presentation. I want to read the fine print, so to speak. I want to see the numbers. I want to know where the money's going.
and is, as described, some very high level. And if there's concern about the public nature of these meetings, perhaps this is something that can be shared with us in the 3 weeks leading up to June 30th, if I may be so bold as to volunteer for the rest of my calls on the committee.
A number of us would agree. If I can just speak directly to our new CEO, because you have the absolute fantastic position of saying, we just got here. But this is by far the most empty presentation on a budget that I've seen in 11 years. And I don't mean to fault Ms. Harris personally whatsoever. Confident she's doing her best. But we have been given virtually, ostensibly, nothing other than no staffing changes, school-based staffing levels, school-based staff for students for special education needs, which is only one part of the funding that affects our kids. This is way less than we could get in the past, and even then, I've been very concerned in the past. We've never really been consulted. We were told about it and then said, oh, here's what's happening in any question. There's way less. The information presented tonight could largely have been emailed out about 6 months ago, just wait for the dollar. We have no idea. And generalist undertakings sincerely expressed by senior staff that we care deeply about all children and we respect the important role of accommodation. We've been hearing that meeting after meeting, year after year. They don't change a thing. There's a legal duty to consult us on the special education budget and to share with us the financial statements relevant to the special education budget. Neither has happened. And that is woefully inadequate, and I encourage you, as you take, clearly there's something's going to get cut, because there was a deficit last year, and the trustees were removed from office because of it, and there's going to be fewer students this year, and no one's saying there's going to be more money. So something's going to be cut, and our kids could well be affected, and we don't have a clue. That is not consultation. The consultation on the special education budget is not optional. I proposed a motion which I circulated by email. Do we have it on the screen? I need someone to move it, as Louise has properly pointed out, that I was chair of moving motions. Leo is moving it, someone wish to second it.
I second from.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Any discussion, or does anyone object to our proceeding to a vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Oh, sorry, David. Sorry, it's Karina here. I did have a comment I wanted to make, and it might be I'm new to the committee this year, so I apologize if my understanding is not correct. But I feel that I fully support the motion and appreciate you bringing forward. My concern is that the discussion, it comments on the TDSB's requirement to consult with SEAC, and if my understanding is not incorrect, SEAC has a responsibility to participate in. So to me, that feels like if the TDSB doesn't fulfill their requirements, that's not good and we're not happy. But if we as a committee have a requirement to participate in, and then we don't participate because we're not given the opportunity to, I feel like we're not fulfilling the requirements of the committee. And so I would just want, I think that if that's the case, then I'm happy if it's not the case. But if it was the case, I would prefer if that was reflected, because of course we all take our role seriously, and if that is a requirement, something we are required to do. And just to note that I did put up my hand to be part of the working group on the budget.
Okay, can I just make a small suggestion just in the interest not sure, I think the key thing is the board needs to consult us, and they didn't, in fact. And that's the core message. I'm not sure I read the regulation the same way.
Okay.
But I also, in fairness, haven't double checked today. But I think for purposes of the objection that's raised in the motion, whether you're right or I'm right won't really matter. The message will still be clear.
Okay, fair enough.
Good here? Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
That's great, thank you. And thanks for raising that. All in favor of the motion? Five in the room.
And I have 9 online, so that is 14, so that passes.
That passes. Thank you, and thank you, Stephanie, for your presentation. All right, I would like to move to, this is the point we want to bring a motion.
Sure, I can agree.
There's a motion which, I didn't formally put on the agenda, but it's in my chair's report, was circulated to everybody, voiced it. It's revising of the closure of the 15 diagnostic kindergarten school classes. I'm wondering, before we actually raise it, whether staff want to speak to the circumstances of that closure. Respective staff, if they want to share anything with us before we proceed to that motion.
Thanks, David. I'll just share that, based on numbers and needs, on an annual basis, the department looks at, opening and closing all ISPs. So while some may be closing, I can tell you that this week alone, and it's a very fluid process, we just, approved to open 3 additional developmental disability ISPs, as well as 1 other gifted ISPs. We're also opening 13 plus at this point, developmental disability ISPs in the new year, as well as 7 or 8 ASD ISPs. So depending on student needs and numbers, we do open some and close some. So while your motion speaks to 1 particular ISP, please know that we're opening more ISPs than what this motion speaks to, and it's very fluid. Again, next year it might be another type of ISP that we're closing, but again, opening others depending on student needs. Thank you.
All right. Leo, does that make you want to change the motion at all?
Thank you. So I think the issue lies with the fact that the caps were raised a few months ago with the justification that it would reduce wait lists and therefore increase access. And then this happens. So it doesn't necessarily have too much logic in my view. But anyway, the motion concerns the planned elimination of 15 DK classrooms this fall. The diagnostic kindergarten, as people know, it serves complex developmental communication, medical learning needs, and it depends on small classes, individualized instruction, specialized supports. And I hear back from many parents whose kids have thrived in that environment. Last year, the maximum class size was increased from 8 to 10, despite concerns from families, educators, SEAC, and trustees. Families in media reports since have described greater sensory overload, dysregulation, and reduced individualized support. The proposed elimination of these 15 classrooms represents another significant system-level change. SEAC was not consulted nor notified. We learned about it through the media. These families already face substantial barriers in learning what programs are available, and many are told that their children's needs cannot be supported in their local neighborhood schools. The motion is challenging whether this declining enrollment can justify a reduction of the scale. It's recommending that SEAC is consulted before future reductions, improve communication with families as well, provide the evidence supporting this decision, and further, now that the decision has been made, report on impacts such as waitlist reduction, transportation, travel time, staffing, access, and especially student outcomes. So what happens now? Let's watch and see, right? That would be very important to know that. We're also calling for meaningful consultation with the affected families and for the motion to be shared with senior TDSD and provincial officials. The motion is not asking SEAC to manage day-to-day operations in ISP numbers up or down. All that we're saying is that major changes to availability, wait lists, and delivery of special education fall squarely within our mandate.
Right, you want to move your motion? Oh, go ahead, well, let's get the motion on the table, and then we'll have discussion. Do you want to move the motion?
Okay, I'll move the motion.
All right, we have a second. All right, and people want to say something? We got
I think I feel we need to say something because the association I represent and our belief in inclusive education in our local schools, and I know all of our committees don't necessarily agree. But I will be voting in favor of the motion because I do believe in the communication with families and making sure that there's meaningful consultation with the committee, that families and student-centered approach is at the heart of what's happening, and the data and evidence of the outcomes of kids is driving the decision making. So, Leo and I have, and many other people in this committee and I have many conversations about that, and happy to do with anything that someone can prove that's better for a student. My understanding is there's very little evidence about the effectiveness of the ISPs, other than anecdotal from families who, quite frankly, face high degrees of persecution. I would say is an appropriate word. Should they choose not to go to an ISP, and our association gets tons of those calls to help families literally fight staff in a community to keep the child in the local school. It's not always that families are choosing that, but they do feel sometimes the need to go there for some sort of welcoming community that sees them and values them. So I just want to on the table that because it's been a little weird I'm voting for this about the diagnostic kindergartens, but this is an issue about communication, student-centered and data-driven decision making, and making sure that SEAC is part of that process.
And I just want to add, Richard, before you chime in, that I think it is a real strength of the SEAC, and I encourage our new CEO to see us as having this strength, that there are people around this table who have very deeply, passionately divergent views on the relative advantages of inclusion for certain classes. But they work together, and in the case of this motion, Leo, who is a profound advocate, perhaps on one side, Nora on the other, both respectful, collaborated with me in the development of this, so it would be a motion that they would actually both agree on. And that's where one of the examples, I think, that you'll find that SEAC is a very constructive partner when treated that way. On the other hand, when we keep learning about these developments from the newspaper, you'll expect and understand why there is a certain amount of frustration that comes from that distrust. Richard.
Thank you, David. So to try and bridge the gap that you just noted, the question I would have are the students that would otherwise have been served these DK diagnostic kindergarten classes being closed, are they being served in a more appropriate classroom setting? And if so, how has this assessment been performed for each and every one of these students? So I want to know that if there's a classroom that's been closed and there's no seats for these students, where have they gone in the school system, and is it a better, more appropriate setting for them? Thank you.
Thank you. Unless there's anyone else, we propose we vote. All in favor?
And I have 9 in the room, so that passes.
For the benefit of staff, I'm going to, especially Amy, I'm going to move to letters of expectation, and then we will get to special education planning. And if there's time for leadership, we can do that, or we can just again, first name till September.
David, can I ask that we stick to doing the special education plan first, just
Oh,
because
sure.
that's a legislative piece, that I'd like to fulfill, please.
All right, go for it.
Okay, thank you. For this component of the agenda, I'm going to pass it over to Assistant Superintendent Dr. Debbie Donsky. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good evening. Just going to share the presentation.
Well, just while you're getting that going, I know, Jessica, you do have a motion which was going to come up in the context of the roundtable, but we will deal with that before the meeting is over. Your motion. Just make sure.
Can I just confirm that everyone can see the slides?
Those who can see the slides.
Yes, of course, David.
All right.
Of course. Thank you.
I was going to say yes, that made me worry. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll begin with the second slide. So we've itemized some more changes that in some cases were in the spec ed plan but not on the amendments last month, and I would like to apologize for that. And I hope that the details we offer this evening will provide more information that SEAC has requested. So to begin, general language has been updated across the plan. In addition to, what we shared last month, we have changed the required time spent on the individual learning plan. It has been shortened from what was 6 to 8 weeks, now to 4 to 6 weeks, enabling a more timely support for students. We have also standardized terminology by changing child or children to student or students where appropriate. And I know there was a question about this and it was brought to our attention. And I just want to clarify that when the statement, for example, says a parent knows their child best, we wouldn't say a parent knows their student best. So when it says change to student or students where appropriate, that's what I'm implying. In section B, the board's consultation process, it was noted that of course there was a minority report shared by the Association for Bright Children. It is noted in section B, and we've added it to the amendments. In addition, the actual minority report will be submitted to the Ministry of Education when the special education plan is submitted for review. And section D, roles and responsibilities, there was a question about what we're comparing it to, because in the amendments, we put in that it was replaced, and I've included a link to the special education roles and responsibilities page, because we took the definitions around roles and responsibilities directly from that page. On the next slide, section E, Special Education and Advisory Committee, the amendments chart now includes SEAC's meeting times and locations. Additionally, the specific process for SEAC's input into the special education plan for 26-27 has been formally added to the amendments, whereby the input to the special education plan will be done by the whole team at SEAC meetings throughout the year next year. Section F, the statement specific to the SEAC 7 as a screener has been removed and replaced with a general statement on universal screening for all grade 3 students. Section G, early identification. There is a statement in the plan, it was included in the last month's amendments, regarding early French immersion and how early years environments promote joy and belonging and engagement. It was removed not because early French immersion doesn't also have a right to joy, belonging, and engagement, but all students do. So we took it out because it shouldn't be a specific mention as if it's different. The amendments also reiterate that SEAC will, that's redundant. Okay, next slide. Section H, we have updated the resource links for English language learners and French as a second language in special education documents so that you can actually use them now. We link to public documents. A key key update to the IPRC process, and I'll go into that in the next slide in more detail, is that level 1 and level 2 decision making is now delegated to the school level, supported by special education and inclusion staff to ensure a more timely and effective student support. The next slide, and I do apologize for the small font, this summarizes how the changes are going to be implemented. And what you'll see in this chart, and I'll focus on the changes as well, but those who can see, the green font shows where there have been changes. So this slide summarizes the key procedural changes to the IPRC process for next year. The most significant amendment here is the delegation, as I said, of level 1 and level 2 decision making to the school level. And you'll see in the chart what is referred to as level 1 and 2. I'll explain it in a moment. This shift is supported by our special education and inclusion staff and is intended to streamline the process so that we provide more timely and effective student support. So to clarify, level 1 is when there's an original IPRC for any exceptionality with regular class placement, which can be indirect resource or withdrawal, as well as gifted only exceptionality and placement. That's not a change. That has been happening for a number of years at the school level. A change that was noted in an email from SEAC. We used to have psychology present as committee members, and they still remain at a level 3, which is for highly complex cases, and who determines it's complex is the special education central liaison principal. So they remain there, but the expectation from the legislation is that there are 3 members of a committee. One must be a principal or a superintendent. So by anchoring the IPRC process at the school level, it preserves vital relationships and trust already built between family and the local principal. They, of course, will be supported by special education teams as well as family school superintendents. So you'll see at level 2, a level 2 IPRC is also going to be done at the school level. It's when there is an increase from regular class to an intensive support program, or there's a change in exceptionality or placement, or it's an initial placement in an intensive support program. The local principal will be the chair, and then we will have centrally trained principals, and that's where the family school superintendent comes in to really know their people and say, you know what, Debbie, you would benefit from having Mandy come in as your second because she is more experienced than you. So we've tried to work in professional learning at every stage, job embedded as well as formal learning to shift this process. We are keeping accountability centered on the students' daily success while growing the collective capacity at the school and system levels. And then finally, as per the Education Act, I've mentioned this, about 3 people, and really the reason for removing site staff from levels 1 and 2 is because we want to focus on assessments. We know how key those assessments are, and although we've done really good work in reducing those wait lists, they still exist, and this is another way that we can move forward. The next slide. Section J. So we added that the IPRC must include the reasons for placement in a special education class on the statement of decision. This is not a change, but we put it in as a firm reminder about the importance of including reasons for placement. We've also added language to clearly distinguish between program and placement for deaf, hard of hearing, developmental disability, and gifted special education classes that are full-time. The information for the IPRC determination of exceptionality for autism has been updated and reorganized. So for example, necessary items like progress reports, parent input, and completed IEPs are still included in the general information earlier in the section. And when this was indicated within the amendments, that we created an overall general information section so that we could reduce the redundancy within this section. And then, for placements in learning disability, autism spectrum disorder, physical disability, and mild intellectual disability ISBs, the language reinforces that the placement can be either special education full-time or special education and partial integration based on the individual student's needs, strengths, and thereby reinforcing the importance of integration for student growth and in line with the Ministry of Education special education class as either full-time or partial integration. And then finally, the last slide, continuing with section J, statement clarifying that grade 12 students in gifted, ASD, and LD intensive support programs are offered English and one other subject through the ISP is now included in the amendments chart. For gifted placement decisions, it is now explicitly clarified that this includes special education class with partial integration at the secondary level. Section P, student numbers for each school for provincial and demonstration schools have been updated as required. And then section T, in the appendices, we updated the links that were also problematic in the last document we shared. And that is it for me.
All right, thank you.
Questions or comments?
Thank you. Mindful of time, is there any, what I'd rather there be now, if you have just questions for your own information, email them in. And can refer them, if there's a change to anything you just heard or read in preparation for tonight, that you feel is critical when you raise it now. Roman and Richard, Nora, Karina, and you each do it in about a minute, more or less. If you can, that'd be great. That's it. Okay, Roman.
I have three things. First of all, is the day of the week going to be changed or have any more flexibility with the time? Because myself, as a person who always works in person, and I see patients every 20 minutes, I am never able to actually appropriately dedicate all this time. Thankfully, my husband can, and he's been doing this longer, but it's very hard for us. And I would like to see that time, always being on like a Thursday at this time and not thinking outside of the box or bands like ourselves. Number two, I do have concerns about not having a social worker or someone there accessible. I know social workers are automatically always there. I understand this, like all of this aspect, but I remember my first year with my daughter, her physical disabilities, being in tears and crying, and the principal was basically yelling at me beforehand before I had to fight and get that IPRC meeting. So I don't want other families to go through that without having other people watching what we went through to fight for that. So I am concerned, and are we still able to invite advocates like ourselves at our own will if needed, like myself or anyone here who represents these communities, because that should be explicitly given to parents as something they can do, so they need documentation on what's going on there. We can't just be there with the principal and the VP along with the superintendent. I don't feel that's safe. And that's what I mean.
Okay, I'm going to treat this as give your feedback, and staff will know rather than getting into a discussion on practice and policy like PRC. It's not that that's not important, but because that's a substantive topic that I'm happy to have us both meetings on to, but just not right now.
I don't feel comfortable with that, David, to be honest. I think the direct question about the day of the week can be answered if it's going to be changed, because these are sensitive things to people.
All right, well,
I understand that, but it does mean
okay.
I don't feel comfortable chasing that.
Staff answer the day of the week.
Sorry, Rhonda, the day of the week with regards to, could you just clarify that for me?
It's always on a specific day, and the same with FST, that where parents are not given flexibility in their work schedule or the time. They are just thrown a day, and then if you ask them if they can change it around the schedule or a certain time of the day, there's like an absolute hard no. And in the past, it's been sort of used as the excuse that we're bringing in, the ABC. But I'm hoping now with this change that there will be more flexibility for parents to, since there's not gonna be so many people invited, to actually meet parents.
Ron, what I'm going to suggest, you're essentially saying that there be more flexible scheduling of IPRCs, so parents have more flexibility to accommodate their own lives. I got it right?
Yes, yeah, half the time I can never even attend the program now.
What I'm going to do, again, since the time is not going to run overtime, is to say, to put your request forward, and if staff can get back to her, and if this remains an open issue or unsolved, I'm going to approach you by email, and we can schedule this as an agenda item in the fall, and if necessary, bring a motion with a recommendation.
Okay, yeah, it also is the last week of September, these happen, right? So
Right.
that's my concern, it's been the fall, everyone disappears. Anyway.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next was Richard.
Thank you. Is it possible to bring up the last slide on the special education plan where it was talking about LD, MID, etc.? Just for the clarity for this committee, I had that on the screen, please understand my question here. Is that possible?
Can you bring up?
Yes, just give me a moment, just give me a moment.
Okay, and actually go back one, I'm looking for the one where you talked about the partial integration of students with LDs, etc. I'm not sure.
It was the second one. Special education class and partial integration.
Exactly, so it speaks to LD, ASD, etc. Am I to assume that if a student has a diagnosis of developmental disability, special education with partial integration is not being considered for them or is not available to them? Because I don't see, I don't have the document in front of me, so I can't confirm it. On the developmental disability, I hope that the school board is offering the same opportunities to them with either special education full-time or special education with partial integration. Can that be clarified, please, for this committee?
You or Debbie also?
Thanks, Richard. So, in many cases, our DDISPs, we do have them in integrated sites, but in most cases, we have them in congregated sites. And so there's not integration in a congregated site, it's a full-time special education class. However, when they are in integrated sites, whenever possible, yes, we do, integrate them as we can. The difference is that with the DDISP in secondary, they are full-time ISP classes. And LD, ASD, BD, MID, they take some courses in the ISP and some courses they take outside of the ISP. So that's why DD is not there, because it is a full-time special education class.
Is it possible for this language to be added to the special education plan so parents realize that if they make a particular decision with their child, that they may be locked out of many opportunities?
Thanks, Richard. So those conversations are had at the IPRC. They're also had at the SSG prior to that, but are in the criteria for placement for each of the ISPs, including DDISPs. It does set out what that placement criteria is, and it also talks about the program that the student with a developmental disability who may have special education class full-time will be having. So while we haven't shown that here, the plan does outline what that program is.
So we can you send us that wording so we can see it, so we can share it with parents? Thank you.
Great, next is Rita.
Thank you. I do have some comments that I will send along via email. However, there's one item that I wanted to raise here. In respect to the change in section J, related to placements in gifted ISPs, which is a significant concern for us. Previously, the language stated that LD change in the wording, any potential impacts it might have on number of placements, going forward, and also what documentation or support would be required to, meet the criteria, in particular the first criteria. So I don't need the answer today, but, I would appreciate, staff getting back to me on that, on this item.
That's great, thank you. And finally, Jessica.
Thank you. Very quickly, I know that the language around the Cat 7 has disappeared. We were told that it was part of the study running, we haven't briefed on that. And I'm just curious, when will we briefed on the results? As I presume that the change in language means that we are changing what test is being used. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jessica, really quickly, we removed it, we did conduct a pilot, we will be conducting another pilot, in the new year, and so we have not chosen to move to a different, screener at this point in time, but we will be, doing a broader, pilot of the Ravens, which we presented to SEAC in February of this year.
Okay, and our other finalist, Maura, which is the real final.
I guess I just wanted to make a comment about what we perceive the special education plan to be. I think sometimes we treat it like it's a written document, when it's very much actually related to budget. So those two are not distinct from each other. Budget absolutely has a special education plan. So things like diagnostic kindergartens or ISPs for this or ISPs for that, the committee is going to want to know like the number of each type, the locations of each type, because it gives us an idea of how you're serving your students. So my association very much would love to know how many students are in regular class, how much staff is allocated for that, how many students are in ISP, how much staff is allocated for that. Are we now serving a higher proportion of kids in ISPs than we did, even though we're saying we're doing inclusion and should be doing it well? I'm not trying, so I guess my point is that we see the numbers, the location, as being not part of the CX purview, when we'll be the first people who will call when changes happen or ask for information for them. So I'm hoping the special education plan, at least has now said the number of staff and type will be in the plan at the end of July. There will the location and the maps will show where all of these things happen. But again, we're not really giving input into that, we're being told that, so it's not really consultative in that sense.
Thank you. So not every item in the plan is consulted on, not every decision is consulted on. Again, when these decisions are made based on needs and numbers of students, so it doesn't make sense in a fiduciary way or any other way to maintain ISPs with 2 staff members and 4 students when we have open spots in other ISPs as an example. It also doesn't make sense to have ISPs with no or few students when we have other ISPs or the regular program requiring the staff. SEAC, as with everyone else, it was SEAC's recommendation to put the link with the locations of the ISPs, how many of each, and as we open classes or close classes, those are updated, so those will be updated. We also follow the standards and the regulation when it comes to school board special education plans, and again, I'll state that SEAC has repeatedly shared that a 300-page special education plan is not helpful to parents, and so we really stick to what the standards requirements are for the plan, knowing that at SEAC meetings we can provide information, as well as our parent guide, which is required by the ministry to be submitted with the plan.
So I would argue that the universal design would indicate we have a variety of types of way of communicating information. So I wouldn't use the ministry's limited understanding of what we're entitled to see. If it impacts special education students, we would have to release that. So because the ministry said this is the information we'll get, yes, that will overwhelm some students, that doesn't mean that information should not be released to the public.
All right, I'm gonna call it here. Thank you very much. I just want to offer one last observation and request that both staff and SEAC members. Staff came to me and suggested we need to rethink how we do the input process on the special education plan. There's a reference here that we will deal with it at each SEAC meeting. I'm actually open to different ways of doing it. I frankly don't want to eat up a lot of very precious CIP time on this one form, but we've got so many other substantive issues. I think there's a couple of things. One of which is I welcome everybody's feedback over the summer by email on how we might most efficiently do this. I want to, however, ask everyone to divide in their minds this whole area into two very different buckets. One bucket is substantive changes. Last year it was raising the maximum size of diagnostic kindergarten and mild intellectual disability classes. That was a substantive change, and people had views on it. The change in here, not using psychologists at these IPRCs and instead devoting their time more to assessment, which is a great idea. Those are substantive policy changes. And those are ones that we shouldn't be discussing by trying to kind of pan for gold in a 300-page document to see what's changed, or for staff to sort of highlight more purely substantive change. Those are things which, in my view, would be most helpful if staff could be bringing to us as issues on which they can say, we're thinking of making this change. If we do, it would be represented in this special education plan. What are your thoughts? And then we give our input. The other bucket are formalities, cosmetic, not in the divisive sense, or I'm not seeking to minimize it, but which terminology is best, or are we using consistent language? That's not substantive changes that affect our kids. I want to make sure we give any input we want to give. I don't want to spend meetings of all of us dealing with the cosmetic stuff, with the formal presentation stuff. Though you should get input and staff should benefit from it. But I do want to make sure that we find out about substantive changes early enough in the year that we can have meaty discussions of them. Not because of the form, not because it's in the special education plan, but because it's a change that's being proposed. Keep your ideas over the summer. I welcome it from Annie, from you, and Louise, and from Debbie. And I welcome the feedback from members of the committee so that we can use your time investment and staff's time to most efficient advantage of both of those. I want to turn to what will be our last substantive topic before the motion by Jessica and the time permits the leadership report, and that is the issue of letters of expectation. I've discussed this in my chair's report and in my maximum's chair's report because I gave staff a heads up. They asked for an extra month to prepare. It came to my attention that there are occasions when the TDSB will write a parent what they refer to as a letter of expectation. That's not a legally created animal, it's a letter, and that's the name of the animal. And it essentially is a direction telling the parent, limiting who they can talk to and when they can talk to them at the board. I'm assuming this is triggered by a sense that someone, and I gather from what staff has told me, it's not limited to parents, but the others, are engaging in repetitive and disruptive contact, and the board has decided to go this step. When I saw this, and we're not here to discuss or explore any individual case, the first thing I wanted to do, it raised some flags in my mind. And I mentioned it in my report. Who decides on this? And what are the criteria? Does the board have a policy or a procedure setting up the guidelines for when these are to take place? The board has policies and procedures on tons of things. Who decides? A lot of the safeguards. If a parent receives this and wants to contest it, use their managerial review within the board. Can they take it higher within the board and say, hey, this isn't fair, I don't deserve this? The other two questions that came to mind for me is there an end date? paragraphs I read, and I can share with you, which are the only ones I've seen that I want to see more, because they're anonymized, made it sound like this is basically a full iteration. And the other consideration is, what if a parent receives a letter like this, and their child has become ill and they want to notify someone, or there's an accommodation need when their child is missing, or there's some kind of crisis, and being told you've got to contact some school board official. They're all busy and it may not get to the right person, but the kind of latency that an emergency may require. There's no mandate and there's no exemption for communications necessary to fulfill the duty to accommodate. So I asked the staff if they could brief us on the answer to the question, who decides? What are the criteria? Is there an appeal route? Is there a policy and procedure for the board that you can see? And what recourse is there for parents who want to contest it, or where it's open-ended? So over to Nandy, she knew this was coming, so we welcome your information on this. And we'll open it to discussion.
Thanks, David. So I'll start with your third question and then I'll go through everything else. So if there's an emergency or an issue at a school, we're not sending the parent to a superintendent. School-based staff, whether it's a vice principal, principal, support staff, teacher, will connect with the parent in a situation of emergency. So I just wanted to be very clear that this is for day-to-day or questions that may not be emergency-related questions, but emergency pieces will be dealt with as we would with any emergency. So with regards to letters of expectations, there's no specific board policy or procedure that describes a formal process for issuing such a letter. Administrators and superintendents are given authority and rely on their authority under the Education Act to maintain a safe, respectful, and positive school climate. In practice, decisions are informed by key board policies and procedures, which include PR 739, promoting respect in the workplace, PR 595, code of conduct, PO policy 31, human rights, policy 34, workplace harassment prevention policy. The code of conduct outlines standards for behavior for all members of the school community, including parents. It emphasizes the importance of respect, civility, and positive interactions. It also highlights the role of parents in supporting a safe and inclusive environment, including demonstrating respect for staff and others, particularly during times of disagreement. The human rights policy reinforces the board's commitment to upholding and promoting human rights in all learning as well as working environments. The workplace harassment prevention policy affirms the board's expectation that all environments remain safe, inclusive, and free from harassment and discrimination. Across all these policies and procedures, there's a consistent expectation that all interactions reflect professionalism on the part of staff and mutual respect from all parties. When a letter of expectations is issued, it may establish a single point of contact. So I know, David, you were referring to one particular letter, but each of these letters are written in a different way and they have different information. So it may and not always establish a single point of contact, which may be a teacher, vice principal, principal, or superintendent to support clear communication. In most cases, however, a letter of expectation typically reinforces expectations for respectful and collaborative engagement. The decision to issue a letter of expectations is made with careful consideration and in alignment with board policies and procedures, and often as a last resort. When a letter is issued, the reasons for issuing the letter are clear. The reasons are clearly communicated to the parent or individual receiving it to support transparency and understanding. So in a nutshell, that is what letter of expectation is. That's how it's issued. That's who it's issued by.
Okay, thank you. And is there, I asked also what kind of internal review, who decides on this?
Sorry, I have to take a sip of water.
Sure, go for it.
So again, under the Education Act, the principal is responsible for maintaining a safe, respectful, and positive school climate. As per the parent concern protocol, the parent can go from the principal to the school superintendent. If the school superintendent is issuing the letter of expectation, the final stop is with the school superintendent, and again, that would have been done as a last resort after other options have been explored, after communication has been attempted several times with families and so forth. In all cases, we did, however, that there is a single source of contact in such circumstances, and again, this doesn't happen all the time, but there's always ongoing communication happening.
Okay, I want to open it to questions or comments or feedback. We're not going to make any decisions on what to advise, if anything, today. This is the first cut at this, as we sometimes do, but I have just a couple of my own preliminary observations. Others may find them compelling, may not. I consider this kind of letter, while it may be justified in some limited circumstances in some form, deeply worrisome for a series of reasons. Nancy referred several times to the Education Act. There's nothing that I can see in the Education Act that authorizes the board to order a parent not to talk to their child's teacher. And it's not a direction to the teacher not to talk to the parent. It's a school board purporting to use its authority to order parents not to speak to certain people about their child's education. And in the case of students with disabilities or special education needs, that includes not to speak to the teacher about their child's disability-related accommodation needs. That is a very intrusive exercise of state power. And any exercise of state power is governed by the law. And part of our law is the Charter of Rights. And part of the Charter of Rights is the guarantee of the freedom of expression. And I agreed to be not asking school staff to comment on this here, of course. But at the very least, the TSD would need legal authority, and I see none, and clear legal authority, to be able to impose restrictions on the freedom of expression of a parent of a child with a disability about their child's disability-related education needs with the very people who have to be. Now, I'm not saying that there couldn't be somebody who is so cantankerous that steps need to be taken, but with no policy and no procedure, this risks arbitrariness. And for example, being told that it's a last resort, that's a very commendable position, but with no policy, no procedure, no safeguards, assured in board policy. These could be happening, and senior staff may not even know, or how often, or even if they're justified. Just for example, if the concerned parent's protocol is their recourse, one would think it should be required to be explained in the letter. And if you disagree with this, here's who you go to. Now, I read the whole letter, as we were told in Derek, but one would think parents would deserve that if that's supposed to be their avenue. So I open this up for our committee to say, I'm worried about the risk of one of these being used in circumstances that may not justify it, and I question the authority to do it at all. Does anybody want to either ask a question or express a view? I think we're open to. Anybody else coming in on the speakers list? I know we're. Laura?
Thank you. So I guess my first question or recommendation would be, is the entire staff aware of PPM 170 and the timelines the ministry has set up for responding to parent concerns? I don't think that's necessarily true. I've met many families where the communication, the volume of communication increases dramatically, so is infinite. So now they're being characterized as though they're not really rational anymore, when really it's a result of being David brought up my primary concern, which is you've given a letter as you're advocating for the very accommodations that are see about your child's inability to access their accommodations is too much. And so therefore, you're not allowed to do that anymore. There's no accountability on the side of the school board about not providing the accommodations in the first place, and it becomes an issue. And then I guess thirdly, I would recommend that all superintendents, not just the superintendent of special education, and I feel immense sympathy for Andy, Debbie, and the staff that come to this table and have to face the consequences of their colleagues to this committee. Immense sympathy for that. And I think that it's about time that superintendent, field superintendents need to come to this committee to understand the lived experiences of our students, because they're making decisions not necessarily the same experience or no special education, and they rely very heavily on a heavily taxed department for their education, which is not inclusive. To say you are solely responsible for the lack of accommodation in the school is good. We can't come to the superintendent of special education for 40,000 children. Those superintendents need to be held accountable for understanding those experiences of our kids.
Right, thanks. I would just say if people have other feedback that you would like, feel free to use our email network over the summer and share it around, and we can decide whether we want to do anything about this or not at all. Before we get to the leadership report, Jessica, you want to just make the motion forward? This is the second, Leanne, I should give you a heads up, but it's the Auditor General thing, right, Jessica? Correct. Okay, it's the second motion set out in my chair's report, and if you could get it up onto the screen, just so you know what's going on here. Between meetings, I was approached by two different members who wanted to bring motions forward, and I thought the best way to do it is set it out in my report, so you'll have a chance to reply to the chair views before we go here. Jessica, do you want to give us a 1-minute summary?
Absolutely. So the Auditor General's report set out many concerns regarding special education in Ontario. One of the Auditor General's recommendations that was particularly relevant to this committee, that the Auditor General recommended that there be yearly parent surveys related to their experiences and their children's experience with special education services. Given the surveys that we've seen already, I felt that it's important that we have a voice at the table that's developing those surveys so that we have a high quality survey with results that are usable. So that's what this motion's about.
All right. Would somebody, Jessica, assuming you want to move your motion?
Yes, please.
Does somebody want to second it? All right. Do we require any discussion, or are people comfortable going to the vote? All right. All in favor of the motion? Oh, sorry. Jump off? Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I have the motion, but the only thing that I don't know what we can do that.
Your mic isn't picking you up.
Yes, sorry.
There, that's better. Thanks.
I think that is why she wanted to shoot. We expect them. We don't want them to shoot and choose one.
Yeah.
That's one.
I consider that a friendly amendment. Change should to check.
Okay. You got that, yeah?
Should it to shall.
That's correct.
You just change it.
All right. With that, unless there's anything else, all in favor?
5 earlier.
I have a 9 online, so that passes.
All right. Our last agenda item for this June meeting will be daily leadership report. Who's going to now speak at 450 words a minute. Only I will understand.
David, I'm going to kick off this evening, as I promised last month, the fantastic news that Nandy received the Education Leader of the Year from the Council for Exceptional Children Toronto chapter. I had mentioned that I wanted to the speech, I have it on video, so please indulge us for just a few minutes, so that you can hear, a vice principal in our system who does not know Nandy, who nominated her, and, the details are incredible. Leanne, let's take it away.
Alright, so Elizabeth is going to try to share this.
Thank you.
Mandy Palmer's leadership as Executive Superintendent of Special Education Programs and equitable outcomes at the Toronto District School Board exemplifies the vision, courage, and sustained impact that the Council for Exceptional Children Educational Leader of the Year Award seeks to recognize. With an extensive and distinguished career in special education and inclusive leadership, Mandy has consistently advanced practices that center dignity, equity, and high expectations for all learners. Her recent system-level initiatives demonstrate both strategic foresight and a deep commitment to meaningful change. Establishing a requirement that as of September 2026, all future vice principals, and special superintendents of education in the TSB must hold special
Yeah, we lost it. Is it posted online somewhere?
Elizabeth is trying to get it back. I was having trouble sharing, so she offered to do it, so it seems to have some kind of an error.
If not, is it online posted where you can share a link, people can watch it, so that.
We can move on to the leadership.
Okay.
Let's, Elizabeth, just give it one more shot and move on, and then we'll send the link out.
Nandy's got a link to share about the week, right?
It takes, just so little to express gratitude, let's just see.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
And the TSB must hold special education qualifications, ensuring that inclusive leadership is also embedded across the system, developing also a developmental disability curriculum that affirms the right of students to be treated with respect while being challenged to reach their full potential. And also restructuring intensive support programs, teaching roles, into different positions that strengthen the quality and commitment of educators serving students with complex needs, and also implementing our modified day tracking system has all increased accountability and reduced unnecessary exclusion from school. These are only a few of the initiatives, and they reflect a leader who not only understands the complexities of special education, but actively transforms systems to better serve our students. Nandy's impact is grounded into a breadth of leadership experience across multiple levels of education. She currently serves as Executive Superintendent of Special Education Programs and Equitable Outcomes at the Toronto District School Board from October 2024 until the present. Following her role as Assistant Superintendent of Special Education and Inclusion, April 2022 to October 2024. To Superintendent of Education, February 2021 to March 2022. Prior to her work with the Toronto District School Board, she held several key leadership roles with the York Region District School Board, including Regional Principal, Inclusive Schools and Community Services,
from January 2021 to February 2021. Elementary school principal from September 2020 to December 2020. And September 2021 to June 2017. An elementary school vice principal from September 20 to September 2008 to June 2011. She has also contributed provincially as an executive officer with the Ontario Ministry of Education from August 2017 to August 2020. And she's influenced policy and practice at a broader scale. Across all of these roles, Mandy has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to equity, inclusion, and excellence in special education. She always recognizes the hard work of her team and colleagues as well. Mandy's ability to translate vision into action, coupled with her dedication to improving outcomes for students with diverse learning needs, makes her an outstanding and deserving recipient of the Council for Exceptional Children's Educational Leader of the Year Award. Congratulations, Mandy.
Congratulations again.
Thank you, Louise, very, very much.
Don't be mad at me. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that staff in the department, as well as all of our staff across the district, work really, really hard to support students with disabilities and special education needs. And we come here month after month, and I know we don't always agree, but please know that we do agree on one thing, and that is about supporting all of our students. So I accepted that award on behalf of all of the staff and families and the students that work to support outcomes for students. David, I'm a little upset with you because every month I prepare the leadership report and I get about 30 seconds to share the leadership report.
I'm extended meeting as long as you need.
And the leadership report is not about great things that we're doing in the department. The leadership report is really about highlighting what our students are doing and achieving. And I want to share in detail this piece, so please bear with me. So Victoria Park Collegiate Institute is celebrating our extraordinary graduates. As students and staff prepare for graduation at Victoria Park Collegiate, the school community is celebrating the achievements of 8 graduates from the school's intensive support programs for students with mild intellectual disability. Collaboratively, special education and inclusion staff, administration, teachers, guidance, and families have worked to map out unique post-secondary pathways for each of these students. Whether heading to specialized programs at George Brown and Seneca College, entering the workforce, or stepping into family businesses, each graduate's story reflects growth, achievement, and perseverance. Proud parents and inspired students highlighted the impact of early transition planning and dedicated collaborative support as part of their success. The individual accomplishments within this cohort showcase success and dedication. One graduate not only secured their Ontario Secondary School diploma, but also earned the prestigious Exceptional Achievement Award. An additional OSSD graduate shot in a nursery co-op placement and will return this fall to mentor incoming students in the MIDISP. Another student also achieved their OSSD and celebrated major milestones in independent travel during a successful YMCA co-op placement. Demonstrating a strong work ethic, one student successfully balanced employment with their studies and will attend Seneca College in the fall. Another classmate has shown a strong commitment to achieving her graduation goals while pursuing her creative passion for graphic design. Another student is preparing to take his skills into his family's carpentry business. And furthermore, one student has expressed interest in the George Brown vocational program, with the team supporting their next steps. The final graduate remains focused on summer employment and continuous skill building. 4 of these graduates also received recognition and funding through the Victoria Park Collegiate Institute Special Education Awards. To maintain this incredible momentum, the school hosted a specialized transitions workshop in May to further equip these proud graduates graduates with the self-advocacy and executive functioning skills needed to thrive as they begin their post-secondary journey. We are so proud of these graduates. So really wanted to highlight here the achievements of students in those ISPs at Victoria Park Collegiate and really quickly I'll fly through the rest of the leadership report. It is June and we are still offering parent engagement sessions. And we're looking particularly at supporting students at home during the summer months. So those are some parent sessions that we're offering. On June 2nd and 3rd, we hosted a parent engagement session focusing on helping children maintain healthy routines throughout the summer while exploring and engaging sensory activities that support growth, development, and overall well-being. The sessions drew a total of 17 attendees. And of the attendees who completed the survey, 100% of them rated the session a 5 out of 5 in terms of usefulness, and the majority of attendees felt better informed about how to help their children maintain healthy routines throughout the summer months. As always, a copy of the recorded is shared on our Special Education and Inclusion Parent Engagement webpage. We also have published our June newsletter to families, which has a lot of summer activities and information and resources for families as well. Next slide, please, Ian. Oops. Sorry, I lost my screen. Apologies for that. On May 12th and 13th, Special Education and Inclusion hosted a parent engagement session for parents on focusing on empowering teens with ADHD. I'm really happy to say that the session drew a total of 357 attendees, 163 on May 28th and 194 on May 29th. Of the attendees who completed the survey, 76% rated the session a 4 or 5 out of 5 in terms of usefulness, and the majority of attendees felt better informed about how to support and access support for their children with ADHD. Next slide, please. On the June 5th PA Day, the department continued to host professional learning sessions for support staff, focusing on Tier 1 strategies in the kindergarten classroom, structuring unstructured time, supporting co-regulation and emotional well-being of students, how to use ABC data logs, and how to support students in ASD and MID ISPs. We also had question and answer sessions more informally, as well as sessions focused on sensory and self-regulation. These hands-on sessions provided an opportunity for support staff to learn and further develop their skills and explore effective inclusionary practices to implement accommodations in classrooms that incorporate universal design for learning and differentiated instruction. And of course, even though we're at the end of June, or in June, we continue to offer professional learning sessions for staff around some of those topics I just mentioned. And finally, June is National Deaf-Blind Awareness Month in Canada, and we have provided resources for staff on how to acknowledge and celebrate that, as well as Red Shirt Day on Wednesday, June 5th, and the Purple Walk, which will be held on June 20th at College Park, once again for Epilepsy Toronto's most spirited day of the year. So that concludes my leadership report. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay.
Sorry, David, if no questions, I also wanted to express my gratitude on behalf of the entire department as well as the entire TDSB to all SEAC members. It is our 10th and final SEAC meeting for the 2025-2026 school year. So thank you everyone for your partnership and collaboration.
This is graduation. Okay, thank you all very